Who told you and enforces to celebrate KWANZAA or follow principles of KWANZAA? Why do you celebrate Christmas and say Merry Christmas and buy Christmas presents or even attend Christmas parties? Do you think you got your independence on the day that you celebrate Independence Day? Why do you celebrate these holidays, Thanksgiving or United Nations Day? Should we ditch these days? If we ditch them, which days would we then adopt? Is there a better way? How can we know? What we know is that before the Romans and the Greeks invaded and colonized our lands and destroyed our civilization, we had a 10-day week, which was kept by charting the stars by our ancestors, creating for us a visible calendar that could be seen in the heavens through the movements of the earth, the moon, and stars. Our ancient African melanin-dominant indigenous primordial ancestors were cosmically attuned, reconciled, aligned, coordinated, keyed, integrated, suited, adapted, and harmonized. All other calendars that we see today disturb, confuse, skew, disrupt, upset, disorder, disharmonize, and alienate us from our conscious connection with the all, with the universal whole. Let's look at this issue of ancient African holidays and realize that we need to celebrate what is ours. The confirmation of our calendar comes from a number of scholars. Austrian scholar who lived in America, a mathematician, a historian known for his work in astronomy, Otto Edward Nagwaboa, has termed our ancient calendar, African calendar, as the only intelligent calendar ever to be crafted and invented and existed in history, in human history. It was corroborated by none other than Sheikh Diop, who confirmed the truth about that calendar. But also there's a lot of information that we know how and why this calendar is authentic for us, melanin-dominant human beings, because in the stele of Yebu, the people of Hamit admit that their ancestors came from the southern part of Hamit. Nowhere else. They came from the beginning of the river Hapri. Nowhere else. In the Great Lakes region. Nowhere else. This is where we find the tallest and the most beautiful people and most beautiful women on earth. So let us continue to define what is a calendar. A calendar is an arrangement of time into days, into weeks, into months and years. It is also a process of charting time across the ages and to know where we have come from. Let's look at the types of calendars that are popular today. There are three major types of calendars that are here on earth today that have been followed and invented by our ancestors. The solar calendar, invented by our ancestors. The lunar calendar, invented by our ancestors. The lunisolar calendar, invented by our ancestors, as well as the sidereal or star calendar, also invented by our ancestors. From that pool and from that archetype, the first invention of calendar, we now have the following tropical solar calendars. We've got the Gregorian calendar, which dominates the world today. The Julian calendar, which gave birth to the Gregorian. The Baha'i calendar. The Hindu calendar. The Coptic calendar. We also have the Iranian calendar. Islamic calendar. The Tamil calendar. The Thai calendar. All these calendars were copies and adapted and adopted from our ancient solar, lunar, and star calendars invented by our ancestors. Nobody else invented the calendar except our ancestors in ancient Hamit. Therefore, the early calendars that are popular, still popular today, are the ancient Hamitic calendar, the African calendar, the Babylonian calendar, and the Roman calendar, shown all here. But the Babylonian calendar and the Roman calendar are all derivatives of our African calendar because of age and time. Our calendar itself today, this year, is 6259. Why do we say that? Because we use two primary starting points of calculating the modern calendar, 4236 and 2022, When you add them together, you find that we are already in 2023, technically 6259. You can also use 4241. If you use that calendar, which is correct, that basis which is correct also, you are in 6264. The ancient Kemeticians were the first to create a mainly solar calendar. This so-called heliacal rising always preceded the flood by a few days, the flood of the river Haabki. Based on this knowledge, they devised a 365-day calendar that seems to have begun in 4236 BCE, the earliest recorded year in history. So let's look a little bit at the sidereal calendar, because it's very, very important for us to understand this. What is the sidereal calendar? The sidereal calendar is a solar calendar that allows and follows the annual motion of the sun relative to the stellar zodiac rather than the equinoxes and the solstices. Very, very important. So it is a star calendar. In ancient history, our ancestors charted the stars and discovered the most perfect cycle, the alignment of the moon, the sun, the earth, and the star Sirius, and charted over several generations. During times of spiritual enlightenment, our ancestors recorded this cycle occurring once every 1460 years. That's very, very important. We shall deal with this in our future videos. So let's look at the Afro holidays from a spiritual perspective. We know that our New Year starts on September 23, because the indigenous people of Southern Africa and all other places on earth, indigenous people, had their New Year at this time of the year when the vegetation starts growing and greening. It is the beginning, it is the start of the new cycle of seasons. And at that time the sun declines and moves southwards. So the seasons that we get from out of that are as follows. September 22 to January 22. It is birth of life, the new beginnings, planting, because more energy is now coming to this part of the earth. January 22 to May 22, it is growth and development, where we know it is also the development and the growth of your divinity or spirituality or your soul. And then from May 22 to September 22, it is aging and ready to depart into ancestorhood period. So this is the structure. These three seasons are the structure of the seasons of our calendar that we adopt and we follow, and everything else that comes after fits in there, either on the planting, on the growth, and on the departure or aging section. So let's look at the Afro holidays specifically now. The 7 holidays that we must all understand, agree, adopt, and synchronize to our lives. New Year, September 22-23, followed by 5 days of the divinities, September 23 to 29. Then Resurrection Day, March 25. Also Harvest Day is the third one, and Thanksgiving Day, which is in the last week of March, the last 10 days of March before the beginning of April. Thanksgiving celebrations, Hunter's Day, end of summer, and a time of feasting and paying tribute to the gods for their bounty, for prosperity, for good health, for vegetation, for nature, and for happiness in our lives. So the fourth one is Ancestors Holy Day, May 8, which we are advocating that it should be adopted as Holy Ancestors Day, May 8. The fifth one is African New or Full Moon rituals that are celebrated every month. And sixth one is celebrating Ras Day. And the seventh one is your birthday, not your solar holy birthday, but your lunar synchronized birthday celebration that comes once a year. So the Resurrection Day comes from our understanding of Ausari and as the judge of the dead, and our ascension or our awakening and gaining our energy. It is evident that the celebration of this resurrection is symbolic of the return of spring, conditioned by the position of the sun exactly as it crosses the celestial equator, which is on March 21, 2000 years ago. This apparently occurred on March 25. O Atema, give me the sweet breath which is in your nostrils, for I am this egg which is in the great Kekla Guvu. I am the guardian of this great being, Shu, who separates the earth from the sky. If I live, she will live. I grow young. I live. I breathe the air. I am he who splits iron. I go around the egg. Tomorrow is mean through the striking power of Oresu and the strength of Shata. So you're combining your energies, positive and negative, to move forward, to strive forward, to gain more energy, to become the one who is guarded, to breathe the air, to have the spirit. That's the resurrection we are speaking of in your current life, as well as the judgment when you die. So every melanin dominant human being to celebrate either a new or full moon, depending with the dominant energy in you. When you look at the moon when it's full, what do you feel? When you look at the moon when it's starting anew, what do you feel? Because the moon is a portal to divine consciousness, a part of the mother as all things are, but a very special part as she brings the connection to the source that helps us grow. We do our ritual through the moon, not as a means of worship, but of self-love and a connection to that which we know manifests within us when we need it to manifest in this journey, and guided by only ourselves. So how do you do that? You have to use a lot of imagination. You have to affirm it. You have to draw it in your journal. You have to plant the seeds literally by dreaming and visualizing it. You have to sanctify it through oracles, akata. You have to create a vision board, consult the ancestors and divinities, and reach out to trustworthy elders and trustworthy spiritual leaders so that they can allow you to understand yourself, to grow, for the kingdom of heaven is within thyself. We also celebrate Ra, the sun, which is the alignment of the sun. Originally, the alignment occurs and was captured by our ancestors as they built temples and the large structures. Today, this festival is celebrated by accompanying traditional African dances, live music, and plenty of street food outside the venue in Hamid. So we need to understand that it's not only in temple of Wazet or Karnak, but also in Abisimbo temple and also temple of Dendera, where the illumination of the sun through the passages that were crafted and created by our wise ancestors shines on the statues of eminent persons and eminent citizens of ancient Hamid, and also the inner and the holy of holies of these temples. The Great Sphinx is, or a Horemakuti, is a construction that was done by our ancestors of the Sphinx that is faces east. The totemic lion, the ruler, the royal one, faces true east. And this was not mere coincidence. Rather, the ancient Khamiticians wanted to announce certain seasonal changes with the solar phenomenon, namely the spring on March 21st, when it faces each other, as well as the autumnal equinox of September 23, when we start our new year. Very, very powerful, very, very important here to understand our African holidays. These are the African holidays that were instituted or are instituted by politicians all over Africa. And the only one perhaps here of note is May 25th, Africa Day. And this border day, we don't worry about it, or politics, we don't really consider them, and they go on. And now we want to look at the summary of all the holidays that we should have. This is very, very important because it captures the essence of our African or melanin dominant holidays, the skeleton on which you should build more of your own holidays. So the new year, September 23, 22, followed by 5 days of divinities from September 24 to September 29, ending on the 30th. The Resurrection Day, March 25, Harvest Day or Thanksgiving Day or Hunter's Day, the last 10 days of March before the beginning of April. Holy Ancestors Day, May 8. African New or Full Moon rituals. You have to pick which one is yours. You can't have them both. You either celebrate New Moon or Full Moon. And the 6th is celebrating Ra's Day, the sun. And 7th is personal lunar synchronized birthday. If you celebrate your birthday on the same day or same month you were born, without calculating it, basing on your number of months you spent in your mother's womb, you are celebrating a Romanized or Greco-Romanized birthday. It's not a birthday. You are just having a party. It has no spirituality whatsoever. It's just a physical birthday, and we should not do such waste of our energies. We also have African American calendars here, where we want to emphasize that Kwanzaa is a good day for us to celebrate. Only one day, not the whole lot, but only one day. We need to be free from Greco-Roman influences. We need to do that by knowing our own calendar. Why is it important that we need our calendar? It is for our identity, which is our power and connection to our ancestors. It also honors the divinities, nature, ancestors, and remembers their power in us. It also gives us sacred timelines that are synchronized ancientness of our beginnings and origins. So these are the reasons why we need our calendar. Synchronized spiritual and physical identity, sacred timelines, honoring our divinities and ancestors and nature, and mental freedom. These are the 4 reasons. If your calendar does not do any of these, chuck it in the bin. Don't waste your time. Because if you stick to it and fail to stick to our calendar, you are giving power to that force or those forces that colonized and enslaved us and continue to colonize and enslave us. And eventually you will never understand the 78 trillion years ago events that gave birth to matter. So it's time to celebrate our own African holidays or melanin dominant holidays. Subscribe to our channel, Hamiti Hebrew Ethics. If you are interested in any of this information, specifically of the 7 holidays, send us an email on join@marifado.com. Tatenda, siyabonga, henkosi, salani kahle, your harmonized topi. This is Rabbi Elem Dumizulu Kunken Mjakan Jamskaban saying Ameni to our African holiday.